Thank you, Father Paul and Presbytera Karen, who are from Seattle, for taking the time to be interviewed despite your hectic schedules. Speak to us about homeschooling. So with the current tide of anti-Christian sentiment permeating throughout the school system, it's understandable that there is a rise in interest when it comes to homeschooling. So what were your reasons that you both chose to homeschool?
Well, we actually saw a family that we knew that were interested in homeschooling, and just seeing their children, they were a lot different to the normal, that you see in the schools. And then when we started to look into it, it was just the advantages just outweighed the disadvantages. Spending more time with the family, and like you say, even back then, some of the teachings that were in the schools just didn't fit with our philosophy of life.
I'd have to say too, we were thinking about it from a secular point of view, firstly, before a religious point of view, which our thought process has changed in that time to more a spiritual thought process. But from the secular point of view, I would agree with Presbytera Karen in terms of saying that we had the opportunity to educate our children, and I'm not anti-school, but there are certainly challenges in terms of what is happening in the school system these days, and children being influenced, and class sizes, and how well educated is your child, being educated, so to speak, spending time with the teacher, and being in that environment, exposed to influences of the world which are not always positive, that you mentioned.
Not only that, but my philosophy was I always wanted my kids to enjoy learning. I think a lot more learning happens after you leave school than it does while you're at school. But the problem is in school that it's brainwashed into you so much that kids don't enjoy learning anymore,
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted them to have this love of learning. So
excellent. And now, how did people react to your decision to homeschool? There is a perceived stigma that homeschooling's the schooling of choice, or how should I put this? People who are not near schools, or cults, if you like,
that's
as
right.
well.
Weird unsocialised homeschoolers.
Yeah, that's right. So, how did you deal with the perceived stigma?
Yeah, you get a lot of that, especially we started 17 years ago, so it was relatively new in Australia back then. We just didn't really associate with a lot of people that were negative towards it. We mostly hung around other homeschoolers at the time. I think it's like anything. Being Orthodox, we're different anyway. We think differently to the world, and we're seen as sort of silly and crazy religion and all that kind of thing anyway. So I don't think it wasn't that far out of the box being a homeschooler on top of that.
Yeah.
And I look at it from 3 different ways as well too. You have the stigmatism of homeschooling, that's different. You have the challenge of those people that look at you as a homeschooler, and then they're dealing with their own personal challenges because they probably would like to do it, but can't, either due to financial constraints, or the confused understanding of what it costs to homeschool, or I could never do that because I don't have the patience to do it.
I'm not educated enough.
Or I'm not educated enough. Yeah. I don't have the ability. I'm not educated to do that. But it's a learning process. Homeschooling is, as your kids are learning, you are learning as well too. Through the texts and resources that are made available. I mean, I've learned a significant amount of things off my children that I didn't know before through what they've learned.
Yeah, and it's the same.
Right. So there wasn't too much of criticism from...
Well, there is, but I think you have to be very steadfast in the belief of what you're doing, like the belief in your faith in God. As Orthodox people, if you're strong in faith, you learn to defend that. So defending schooling your children becomes very simple then. Don't feel as well too you have to defend it, because sometimes in the beginning stages you felt like you had to defend what you were doing because it, well, for want of a better term, felt wrong. Okay, because it was different from what the system wants to do. Okay, the challenge with the system is that secular society is making you fall into the school system, locking your children away in a building for 7 to 8 hours per day with that particular age group, with a very small amount of time to socialise. So when they talk about socialisation, well, how much time do kids really get to socialise in school? Lunchtime and the breaks, morning tea, afternoon tea. So really not a lot of time to socialise, because you can't socialise in the classroom. You're meant to be listening to the teacher. Whereas in a homeschooling environment, children are constantly asking questions and parents are answering those. There's that constant interaction. And there's a constant interaction between different ages if you do get involved with other families as well. The other thing with that as well too is that, there are different types of homeschooling systems. Some are very disciplined and follow a regimented course, and some are more of a free-flowing education environment. But if Karen tends to follow a system that combines a number of different things. You have some structure, you have discipline, but you allow for the times when you have field trips and you have schooling in the morning. You go out in the afternoon, you're going shopping. And in the early stages, our children were learning about finances, about shopping, and the cost of goods and things, and budgeting, and why you do certain things, going to the bank and banking money. Why do you go to the bank and bank money? Those types of things as well too. So you're actually out in the world learning, not stuck in a classroom all day.
And a lot more play too, especially when they're younger. I think we get caught in this thing where kids have to learn to read by the time they're 5 years old, otherwise they're behind. And it's not true. When you homeschool, you're able to teach your children when they're ready to be taught. And it's far more important. I tell the people that I know in Seattle this, it's far more important that they love love reading when they get older, not what age they learn to read. And then they never open a book again. So as long as they know by they're 18.
and your children will develop a thirst to what they want to learn as well too. Our kids have different interests. Caleb was very interested in science and wanting to learn science. Gabrielle's very much into the arts and drama and she's singing and playing instruments and things, and but it's wonderful to see they grow because they love that, rather than forcing something down the system that they don't want to get involved in. And that actually helps guide, if they're learning a passion for something, that will carry on in life as well too.
What does a typical day look like?
Okay, well, I tend to get up early in the morning, and then I might read some information or wait for these two to get up. Sometimes they may get up early, sometimes they'll sleep in, which is fine with me. I follow more of an unschooling approach these days, and they tend to do more work themselves. And then, Caleb usually gets up first, and then he'll go in and start doing his science program and then maths program, and then Gabrielle will get up a little bit later on because she doesn't like to get up too early. But we're usually finished by 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then later on they may actually go and do something else, but then homeschooling also could be watching a program on TV. You're still learning something.
Some sort of a documentary, nature program. Could be even a religious program.
Everything's a learning experience.
Absolutely. Some of the concerns of someone who might want to look into doing homeschooling is the fact that there is an element of having a regimented and strict adherence to the program. A lot of parents might think that that's something they can't go about doing. Was that a concern for you, whether or not you could sort of see the program through to its end?
Yeah, we always took one day at a time. I didn't think I would homeschool high school until we got there, and then I thought, okay, let's just keep going. This is good. It all comes down to knowledge. I think you have to work out what kind of philosophy you want to take with homeschooling, because there's so many. There's classical education, which is more full on 9 to 3 discipline, textbooks, Latin, like one extreme, to unschooling right at the other extreme, where it's free flowing and children can do what they want to do kind of thing, and it's just more organic. That's the biggest thing. You have to work out how you want to teach, and also how your children learn is totally different as well. I've got two that completely learn in different ways. One loves textbooks and the other one loves to read. So we do more of a Charlotte Mason approach with the one that loves to read, whereas the other one, give him textbooks and he's happy, he's right to go.
And it's really interesting because, there's this common talk about system and discipline. And Karen mentioned there are systems that are very regulated disciplines and some are more free-flowing. And it comes back, I think, to you as parents and individuals based on your lifestyle. Whether you have two partners working or one partner working. Again, it has to feel right for the family as well. So don't get too caught up on the system, because that's what you were trying to get at in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay, but some find comfort in a system. That's fine. Develop a raw format, and Karen does have a raw format that we follow. It's a general guideline, but it is flexible, and be flexible. What flexible means is different to everyone. But do what's comfortable. Do a lot of research. There are lots of resources. Homeschooling is not as prevalent as it is in the United States, but it's growing. I mean, we started homeschooling here in Australia, and Karen found resources and groups of people. In the United States, there are more groups that you can get involved with, so you're not doing it on your own. That's important too. Don't go through this process doing it on your own. Similar to our Orthodox faith, we don't do it on our own. We commune, we go to church together. So there are groups of people that you can do that with, and lots of resources. Find groups here in Australia, but also connect with people in the United States as well too. Books, programs, study programs. Caleb going through high school, Christian-based study programs as well too. But have some sort of a structure, how that best suits for you. Allow it to be flexible. And I would say don't get overwhelmed, as I said in the beginning, in the terms of take it in slots or groups. Don't think you have to homeschool all the way through high school, because that can be overwhelming. Like you said before, not thinking you can do it or educated enough to do that. Take it in a year at a time. Or take it in 2-year slots. And then after that 2-year period, if you're prepared, continue through that, or find help to get you to the next step, or make the appropriate decision that you need to.
Excellent. So these next couple of questions are going to be more sort of for the parents and how things really worked with the both of you. You mentioned with your particular teaching dynamic, is it possible for one parent to be the primary teacher? And if that was the case, did it put a bit of a strain on your marriage at all? Having to be both a parent and a teacher and to be always around them constantly?
Yes. I'll answer that. No, absolutely. Look, we're in a situation where, I work full time, I have a secular job, and recently being ordained a priest. And Karen is with the kids all the time, all day, and that can be a challenge if I've come home from work and I'm tired and I want to rest, and Karen's been with the kids all day. She wants to have a rest as well too. In the earlier stages, it was more of a challenge because your children are younger, they're very reliant on you. But as they get older, they become more self-sufficient. The reason they become self-sufficient is because you put them through this program of learning to be responsible. They're responsible to understand about, making their own breakfast, trying to clean their rooms. But getting up, Caleb is, he'll be up in the morning and he'll be studying on his own. He'll commence his studies. So. Sure, there are challenges, of course, but it would you say it becomes easier as they get older?
Oh, it definitely becomes easier. Yeah, absolutely. As they get older, like I said, there's less pressure on me to do things with them, whereas they are more self-sufficient with their learning, with their own interests and things like that. But yeah, now thinking about it, it's all coming back. Definitely, there's a lot more pressure because they're with you 24/7. I always say the great part about homeschooling is they're with you 24/7. The bad part about homeschooling is they're with you 24/7. But there's times that we have taken breaks. If you've got grandparents around that maybe can take them. It's important to maybe get a couple of nights or even a night out away because you're with them 24/7.
And again, I come back to community and. and I get into the spiritual side of things. With Orthodoxy, we come and we commune with people in the church. But part of the church process, or part of the community, is children getting together and families getting together through all the jurisdictions of Orthodoxy. Our kids attend Antiochian youth camps, Russian Orthodox youth camps, Greek Orthodox, the Orthodox Church of America youth camps. So it gives them time where they go and where they're away for a couple of weeks. And it gives Karen to have some time, and we have time together as a parent. Importantly, allow some time on a weekly basis for you as parents to get away as a couple. Not as parents, but to get away as a couple. And that could just mean going for a coffee in the afternoon just to talk about certain things, because we all get busy in our lives and everything, but just simply taking a half or an hour away from the children can be a good thing as well too. But put them in programs. Caleb's involved in the YMCA and the leadership program, and has been involved in that for quite a period of time. They're in drama programs where Karen leads them. They're homeschooling drama programs where they learn about drama and theatre. So there are things that you can do and put them other than you being the only person teaching them. It is about community. For hundreds of years, schooling was all about community. Everyone in the community schooled people. We didn't stick them in a building somewhere, in a classroom. That became more the result of we getting busy in our lives and working, trying to get our glass castles and everything. So,
but even within Australia, there are homeschool groups that you get together. You meet in a park, and the kids go off and they can play. But even that's time out for your parents, and then you can sit and talk, and you've got other parents there to talk about struggles with, or just to get that adult time that you need, which is important. So.
When speaking with Caleb, he addressed one of the challenges with homeschooling, namely the perceived potential for isolation from other children. How did you address this common concern for aspiring homeschooling parents?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of Caleb, but not having gone to school, I'm sure he thinks, what would it be like to go to school? I know that for a fact. To speak to that, I think as a parent, you can only do what you think is right for your children.
I suppose to elaborate, Caleb was saying that he found that when he came to America, when he went to America, there was still setting up the sort of social structure. So we had the homeschooling, it was always at home, being schooled in that setting, and not yet having friends within the church to sort of socialize with, not having these programs that were still in the works, hasn't found them yet, wasn't involved in things. So there was a bit of a bridging of that gap. But before getting there, it's always a concern for parents who do wish to enter into homeschooling that kids won't get the sort of social interactions that they require. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the things that parents can do in order to, you mentioned the YMCA, getting them involved in programs like that. It seems to be a very natural thing for children who are homeschooled, or children in general, to sort of
see the YMCA had a homeschooling program there. They actually had a homeschooling program there, and back in Seattle, there, the particular YMCA that we go to. So that was a good thing, because you got involved with homeschoolers based on that program. But again, it's based on getting out. Don't sit in a box. Get out and look for things. For groups of people, research. I mean, the internet can be a very good tool as well as a bad tool. There's a lot of bad information on there, but it's a resourceful tool if you're looking at the right places. Google in homeschool groups, Seattle, Washington, it's amazing what comes up. Programs and things like that. Everyone's situation is different. I can't talk to everyone's situation, but when you move, we lived in Australia for 40 years. Our children were 10 and 7 when we left Australia to go to the US. We had no family over there at all. So it could have been isolationist in terms of our children leaving their friends here. But again, you have to go out and look. Firstly, we had our church community. I come back to that. You develop as an Orthodox Christian first, and we think of being Orthodox first and being an Orthodox family first. So the church was the first place that we established ourselves as a community, and we got ourselves involved. We got ourselves involved in me serving in the altar and Caleb serving in the altar, and Karen helping out in the sisterhood. Whatever activities that the church had on, we would get involved in. So become servants of your community, and then you'll find other like-minded people outside of the general research that you'll do on your own. It's like climbing a mountain. It seems like an arduous journey until you get to the top. And when you get to the top, you see everything around you, but you have to maintain the journey. Not everyone will get there. It's not for everyone. Homeschooling won't be for everyone. There'll be people that will get into it for a short period of time and can't do it for many reasons: financial, physical, and mental reasons as well too. It can be like that. It's not, all roses and bells and whistles and things like that.
Oh, this socialization thing. I feel like it's something that's this propaganda that's been put out by schools more than anything else. What about socialization? And I feel like homeschool kids are more socialized than kids in a school. Kids sit in a schoolroom with a bunch of other kids that are all exactly the same age. They can't actually talk. They've got to listen to a teacher tell them what to do all day, and then they can go outside and talk for a little while, and then half the time they're being mentally beaten up by all the other kids that are in that school, and it's not society. It's not how the real world works. So I've never bought into this whole socialization thing. And I think, especially in America, most universities and things like that actually prefer homeschool kids because they are more well-rounded. And it's the same in Australia. They're more well-rounded. They're out in the world. They're in the real world. They're not stuck in a classroom. So I personally wouldn't worry about that. If you're in social groups or you're in sporting groups, or during school holidays, we would always go to things like GOMA, the Gallery of Modern Art, or there's so many different art programs and things that they can get involved in, and they meet kids that way.
And again, a lot of these homeschooling groups have regular organised activities that they go to different places.
Yeah, they meet once a week. You can meet maybe twice a week. It depends on what group you're a part of.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Father Paul and Mateshka Karen, for spending the time, and it was very informative. I'm sure a lot of people gain a lot of benefit from hearing this. So thank you very much.
It's our pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you for talking to us.